All right, so I want to get started by first saying that one of the things we have a hard time really talking about is this very subject about suicide when it comes to relationships, because obviously we live in a world where a lot of people feel like there is no way out. There's no way of coping with it except of taking our own life. Uh, and so I want to get started, and I feel like a lot of it is because we have so much weight when it comes to the subject of how do we cope with loss of a relationship, with a breakup, and so let's get into it. Damon, I'm going to get started. One of the things I feel like is a big issue is that we get a weight of child support and all the things that come along with people that get in relationship, the breakup, and then we get into this place where we have court costs, attorney fees, and for a lot of people, they just don't have a way out of it.
Right, right. So, you know, when everything goes wrong, especially financially, and you can't put together any more pieces that you think that will be for your benefit, then it crosses a person's mind, especially a man, that, why am I here? I should go ahead and end it and just get everything else out the way, especially when you're struggling and you don't see no way out. So a lot of people have that kind of mindset to where they lose hope, and that's they have no way to cope with the rest of life. So, suicide crosses their minds.
Well, one of the things I'm going to be just very transparent. I have personally in my own life have dealt with times in my life where I felt like, man, there's no way out, and I came to understand even in the times that I went through that there wasn't always somebody there to talk to, and so I want to go into just my perspective why we have so much weight on this issue.
And I wanted to say, especially with men, we like to keep things bottled up inside. Sometimes we don't like to talk to people about our issues that we're having in life. So with all of that weight on you, because we're supposed to be, the more dominant and more masculine sex, that we don't want to have conversation with people, as far as going to look for therapy or just having some kind of counseling session, because we don't want people to look upon us as weak. So we tend to hold things bottled up inside. And once everything is bottled up inside, you start having these patterns, to cross your mind to where you kind of like, I have no one to talk to. I'm all by myself. Why am I still here? I need to just go ahead and end it. So, that has a big effect on us.
So I want to just kind of go from an angle, and let me give me a minute, guys. I'm going to pull up a stat here. If you guys can see this, it says on suicide. So there's many factors that go on with suicide. One of the things, actually, Damien, the relationship problem is 42%.
Right.
It's 42%. Then we go into having, where we're looking at substance abuse is 28. Losing a job financially can be a big impact. And so our physical health, maybe all of a sudden we're going through some major area here. If you guys can see the stat on here, it's very surprising that we're looking at relationships make 42%. That's a massive number of why we're dealing with this issue. So if you guys can see the whiteboard behind me, I'm going to write some things down, and I'm going to have actually Alex come back, and he's actually going to write some numbers down. So just a minute. Be right back, guys.
And the main cause of suicides in a relationship is depression. Depression, which is caused by, you, whether it's having a failed marriage or having a failed relationship, it all has to do with love. So once you're separated from that person, and you go through the divorce process or whatever the case may be, then stats show that men are 9 times more likely than women to commit suicides. So that's 9 to every 1 woman. And women tend to think about suicide more often than men, but men tend to go ahead and go along with the suicide process. So, and there's many factors that lead to that. Like I said, love, narcotics, alcohol abuse, finances, and so on. So when we talk about love leading to depression, that's the number 1 cause of suicide for men. Now, with that being said, I always tell guys, a lot of, when I'm coaching, there's a lot of reasons that, we can lead to a divorce, but let's just talk about the love aspect of it. And I tell guys, and I always tell guys this, don't get to the point until you really know that woman, you've known that woman for a long period of time, to where you get attached. Because once you get attached, all bets are off. So, I'm not for attachment, like I said, unless you've been with that person, a long period of time. And even then, you need to kind of stay kind of, not to the point to where you just head over heels for that person. And, and I also tell guys this, I said, look, there's a lot of women out there that are like, I like to use this analogy, that are like the repo man. The repo man is heartless. The repo man doesn't care that you have to get up and go to work the next day, doesn't care that you have to take your kids to school. All he knows is that you're behind on your car payments and that he's been authorized to pick up your car. He's heartless. He doesn't care. So, and there's a lot of women like that, and so-called there's a lot of men like that. But in most cases, it's the women that are, that initiate the marriages and the breakups and things like that. So, they're very heartless. So, like I said, I'm not for attachment simply because of this reason. I've had friends that have known friends that have gone through suicides because of bad relationship problems. And so, that's something that you need to you need to get some counseling, some therapy for after your breakup or your marriage, because that's very serious. And like I said, with men, we tend to not want to talk about our problems. But when the thought crosses your mind of wanting to commit suicide, you're going to have to let somebody know, because that's a very, very serious subject and something that needs to be addressed. So, you really have to talk about it.
All right, guys, listen, this light's a little bright for me, so bear with me, guys. So I have the whiteboard behind me, and I want you guys to stop and think about something before you guys jump into the next relationship. One of the things you guys need to realize is that the chances, if you are 25, between 25 and probably 37, the chances of a person that you are dating of having a child is very high. And the odds of that, when you go into that relationship, you need to think about what is going to be involved in that person that may have children. Because the odds of that person having child support is pretty good. And being obligated to that child support. Now, I'm not just talking to men, I'm talking to men and women, because there are women and men that do have to pay child support. So I'm just going to break down some numbers for you guys to make you kind of think about what would be involved if you got into a relationship with somebody and that significant other has to pay child support. Now, obviously, you guys know that when we go to work on a normal job, about 15% of taxes are already taken out of our paycheck. So now the figures that I'm going to give you is another between 25, 30, and 40% that actually is going to be put on top of that. Now, and that's not including court fees, attorney fees, and all the other things that are involved. And I'm saying this, guys, because this is something that is a compounding thing that could cause a person to really feel like they don't have nowhere to go because they are paying everything to the court, everything to child support, everything to a place where they are now feeling like, man, I don't have much hope. I don't know where to go. And so I just want you to think about something, guys. All states, all 50 states, after 3 months, garnish your driver's license or any other license, hunting, fishing, whatever license it may be. They actually will come and garnish your driver's license. Now, to me, I don't agree with this. Mainly because on the factor that everyone has the right to be able to get back to forth to work. Yanking someone's license does not make any sense to me for that woman or man having to get back to forth to work and try to pay child support. Now, you may say, well, what does this whole figuring have to do with having anything to do with relationships? Because you really need to understand that it's going to be taken out of your household. So I'm going to break it down for you a little bit. Let's just pretend that this is your house, right? And you have a couple kids. Right? Now, I want you guys to realize this. So, hypothetically, let's just say where I live, rent is $1,400. That's before any deductions, electric, power, and all the other things that are involved. So, the time I get done, that $1,400 is now $1,700. So, $1,700. Before anything else, now we got child support coming. So let's say, and if you got, one child is 20%. Two children is 30%. Three children is 30%. And then you go to so if you guys can see that, I know I'm not the greatest artist in the world, but so you got 20%, 30%. This is actually 35%. There's the three kids. It's 35%, and this is 40%. Now, I want you guys to think about this. I said earlier that rent is $1,700 with electric, water, trash. Now, 40% of that has to go where? Back to the court system. Back somewhere, the $1,700 is now 40% or 30 or 20% of that is now going to be knocked down back to the court system. Now, if you are a father or a single mother and you got to pay this child support, if you are at, I don't know if I got it on here or not. Well, just hypothetically, just think about that $1,700 for a second. And you end up going out with somebody that has 3 or 4 kids. Now, you got to know, Damein, 40% of their paycheck or your paycheck is going to go to these kids.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot of people don't think about that.
They are not, you guys are not thinking about, oh, he's got 2 kids or they got 3 kids. But before you jump into that relationship, you need to know financially that you are really committed to going into that relationship, because a big chunk of this money is now going to go back to the court system. And don't be late on the child support, because if you do, all 50 states after 3 months garnish your driver's license. Now, Damein, tell me your opinion on that, garnishing a driver's license.
Well, it's not legit. If you want that man or that woman to, if they're garnishing their paychecks and you want them to pay, well, and they have a vehicle and they have to go back and forth to work and go everywhere else, what if they get pulled over and their driver's license is suspended? But they have to go to work to make the money. So that doesn't really make any sense. I mean, there's a, it's an unbalance there.
Yes.
But the state doesn't care. They don't care. And I tell people all the time, I said, you have to really be careful, who you decide to sleep with, because like I said, if shit hits the fan and you guys end up separating, you got 2 or 3 kids and you go to court, get a divorce, and more times than not, the majority of the kids go and stay with that mother. So especially here in Texas. So, that can lead, there's a domino effect with that. So that person's getting their paycheck garnished. They don't have their driver's license. They get pulled over. You go to jail. And depending on how long you're in jail, all of those child support payments build and build and build. So just because you're locked up behind bars doesn't mean that you still don't have to pay those payments. So, and that leads to a multiple number of struggles, depression, and everything else that goes with that. So when it comes to finances and you're behind on certain payments, listen, psychologically speaking, there's a lot of things that cross your mind. And you ask yourself, you're like, hey, man, I can't afford this. I'm behind. The court's on my ass. I can't get back and forth to work. I can't even support myself. I don't even have any food to eat. So you're kind of like, what's the purpose of me still being here? Why am I still here? Because this is going to last 18 years. And depending on how far you get back on your payments, you're still going to have to, come up with that money even after the 18 years is up. So, it's called back pay. So, it's going to get bad from there. And, the thing is, like I said, things cross your mind and you're kind of like, I'm never going to be able to get out of this hole. So the depression, that can lead to suicide.
So I'm going to actually pull them. Are you okay with the light? All right. I'm actually going to put on my lights because this light's right in my face. So, all right. No, that's a lot better. So I want you guys to understand that. So I'm going to tell you my own scenario where I went through. So I had 2 kids. For you guys that know me, yes, I have Maya, but prior to this, I had 2 kids. Now, as much as it was painful for me, I tried everything that I could through the court system to try to hold on to see my kids. And I ended up with two women, two separate children, and it almost knocked me completely done, out, checked out, felt like life was pretty much done and over with. Why? Because the stress that caused. And now, this is why I tell people, be careful how you judge people about the scenario that you may see them at and not know their story. Because it cost me to a point where I ended up having to terminate my rights. Now, some of you guys out there may say, man, a lot of people just have an automatic judgment and say, man, you failed as a father terminating your rights. Now, it's not because I wanted to. It's not because it's because I didn't love them. It was because I had two women who were vindictive. And both of these women got together and took me to court at the same time. Now, it's bad enough to have one dealing with into the court system. It's another thing having to take on two cases at the same time. Now, where did that leave me in the sense of financially? Even if I had them, and this is the thing I want you guys to understand. Even when I had my children, it was difficult for me to even be able to feed them when I had them. Because all my money is wrapped up and barely being able to pay rent. And I don't have any money to take them anywhere because I'm paying all this child support on top of it. Now, I got to a point where I would just go and get a 2-liter and I would just smoke it up, smoke my weed, take my pain away until the day that I had to end up terminating my rights. Now, and I'm saying this, I'm sharing this story because I want you guys to understand something. I was blessed enough to be able to overcome that. But somebody else, Damein, may not make it past that. And so for me, I had to come to a point that I realized that, listen, I have two choices. Either I go with this and move on with my life and learn from my mistakes of picking women that I thought was the best for me. Or I moved on and I allowed the Lord to take all this burden, this pain that I was dealing with, because it is the only thing that allowed me to process and be healed. Because at the end of the day, I was still a father. At the end of the day, it was still the toughest thing I ever did in my life. Now, I'm sharing this story with you guys because it's a real scenario. And I am not the only person that has had to deal with women, and vice versa, women having to deal with men that are vindictive. And that's one thing that we don't talk about is the women that are vindictive out there. So, yes, this is nothing to play around with. There are individuals, fathers and mothers out there that get to the point where they feel they have no avenue except to take themselves out. I'm not going to see my kids. What's the point? Right? The family's against me. What's the point? And I'm saying this because this is real feelings, real emotions that people go through. And some of you guys out there are about to enter relationships with 2 or 3 people, with people that got 2 or 3 kids. You really need to know what is involved
with that scenario of jumping in with someone that has 2 or 3 kids and got child support. And that's just a tip of it. And I wanted to be transparent because the problem is that we tend to paint this picture to people of real life scenarios, and we don't want people to know what we've been through. I share my story because it allowed me to be able to be healed in my life and have forgiveness. Now, the most important thing that I've learned from it is to forgive myself. Because guilt is something that will hang over you, and you'll hold on to that. And you'll carry that burden of guilt and shame. And if you don't let go of it, it will be the very thing that takes you out. Because guilt and shame is a real deal for a lot of people, that when you go through tragic things in life, you have to be able to forgive yourself. Even if nobody else sees it the way that you see it, you have to get to a place of forgiving yourself. I had to forgive myself and all of the voices that I was hearing. There's 3 voices that we hear. We hear our own voice, we hear the enemy's voice, and then we hear the voice of the kingdom. Now, sometimes it's very difficult to understand that the things that the enemy wants to lie to us and say, see, there's no point of living anymore. There's no point of continuing trying to move on with life, because this is all that's going to be for you. That's a lie. So you have to forgive yourself. I mean, Damein, I know it's not one of the things that people think about, but this child support deal is a real deal for a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's the financial side of suicide and depression. It's not talking about the love or the loneliness. That's just the financial side. So that's just one aspect of it. But it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. And like I said, and I'll say it again, a lot of women are like the repo man. And I always tell people this. I say, and I've said this in our last broadcast, but I meant what I said. There's always going to be one person that loves the other person more. So when it comes to love and a person's heartbroken, whether it's a divorce or just any kind of failed relationship, I mean, you don't know how hard that person can take it. So which brings me to a story of something that happened last week with a friend of mine. And, I went to go visit him at night, and I was talking to him, and he was he had his head down, and he had some water in his eyes. I was like, man, I said, Mike, what's wrong? He's like, man, Damein, when's the last time that I seen you? And this was on a Thursday. I said, probably Tuesday. I said, wow, what's up? He's I need to talk to you. I said, okay. So we go outside and talk, and he tells me, he's like, hey man, you remember such and such? I don't want to say her name. He said, do you remember such and such? I used to tell you about. I said, yeah. He said, well, man, she committed suicide. And I was like, huh? She committed? Why? He's like, oh man, I don't know, man. I don't know. I said, well, and at that time I was thinking to myself, I said, no. I said, nah. So he shows me his phone. He shows me the text messages that she had sent him. And she said that, hey, I got to get out of here. It's time for me to go. I just can't take this anymore. I can't live. I'm sorry. Bye. So I was looking at his phone, and he called her like 5 or 6 times in a row. And he showed me his phone. And I was kind of like, no, man. I said, well, when's the last time I said, did you try to call her today? And this was on Thursday. He said, no, man, I didn't try to call her. Because I know she's killed herself. I was like, no, man. I said, no. I said, well, keep trying to call her. He goes, no, Damein. He says, I know she killed herself. I said, well, how do you know? He said, well, her sister called me and told me that she shot herself in the head. And he showed me the pictures of her being carted out on the stretcher by the paramedics. And then right then, I knew it was real. I was like, oh, man. And at that time, he didn't know why she committed suicide. So a couple of days later, I talked to him. I said, man, what? I said, did you ever find out what happened? Well, come to find out, and I'm going to make the long story short, she was in a relationship with this guy, and apparently this guy was giving her a hard time, and and I believe there was narcotics involved and things like that. And so, and there were some other things that happened in her life besides the drugs, and her relationship was failing. And so, with all of that weight on her shoulders, she decided to take her own life. And I was kind of like, man, because that's the first time, it's been a long time since I've heard someone tell me a story about someone they were close to that actually committed suicide.
Right.
And that made me think, I'm kind of like, I've gone through a lot of things in my life, but I've never actually thought about taking my life. And so what made me think was that, listen, there are a lot of people out there, regardless of whether it's love, finances, them being isolated, being alone, that can't cope with everyday struggles and the pressure of life. And these are people that need help. Now, there are those people out there that say, well, that person's just weak, and that, listen. And if you're that kind of person that thinks that way about people that take their lives, I'm going to tell you right now, go jump in the lake. Because a lot of people can't handle pressure. They can't cope with struggles of life. And the only way out that they see is by to take their lives. And so, you have to be able to catch that with a person before they even get to that level. If a person's dealing with depression, they need some counseling, they need some therapy, they need some kind of help, because you never know. This person may be here one day, and then the next day they're gone. And that was the case that happened with this young lady. And I to this day, I'm just still blown back by it. And I listen to, there's some dating coaches that I listen to, but I've never really heard them touch on this subject, because depression, love, and whether you're dealing with finances and you're just struggling in everyday life, is real. It's real. And some people can cope with it and some people can't, and I tell people all the time, I say, look, man, deep down, you don't know what that person is going through. So don't judge them because they decide to take their own lives.
Right.
And some people say, well, that person took their life, they're going to hell. Well, I can almost guarantee, by you thinking that way, if that person's going to hell, there's a better chance that you're probably going just for thinking that way about them. So I don't judge people when it comes to that. I've been there. I mean, I've actually, thoughts have crossed my mind to where why am I still here? But I never thought about committing suicide. And the only reason that is, me personally, is because, for one, I read a lot. I listen to a lot of motivational speeches, and I have a really big relationship with God. So I know that no matter what I'm going through, eventually it would end. Well, some people don't think that way. They don't have anybody to talk to. They don't have anyone to lean on. They don't have any therapy. They don't have any counseling. They only see black or white. There is no gray area.
Right.
So, that's something that, and for you, and for those of you that are going through situations to where you want to take your own life, well, let me just say this. Please try to get some help. Try to talk to someone that will listen. Don't go the route of taking your life. Don't do it. I know life can sometimes be hard. It's hard on everyone, but don't take your life. Try to get some help, because believe me, there's sunshine on the other end. And it's something that you as a person, you have to be psychologically strong. And some people are just not psychologically strong. They're psychologically weak. So when you acknowledge that in a person, you need to catch that right there and try to get that person some help. So I'm not saying that I'm saying that I understand why people do it. I'm not for it, but I understand why people commit suicide. I get it. But at the same time, I wouldn't do it personally because, for one, my relationship with God, and I read a lot and I go through a lot of positive motivational things. So, but for those of you that are thinking about that, get some help. Please get some help, because I guarantee you, no matter what's going on in your life, it eventually will get better.
Yeah, and I just I want to have everyone understand that we all cope with things differently. We all handle things differently. We are able to move on differently. We all have different faith levels. We all have different things that what may bother Damein may not bother me, right? And that's so I just want to talk about what are some of the signs that you guys can look for in people that are really in a place where they may be at that place of saying, I'm done with it. So I kind of want to just go into what some of the things you guys can look for. So one of them is a person has a long lasting sadness. So, we have our ups and downs, right? I mean, you have your good days and your bad days, but this is something that is long going. So if you know that person is normally an active person and they socialize, and all of a sudden they don't socialize anymore, and they're just being to themselves, real quiet. Maybe they have some mood swings up and down. I mean, 1 minute they're happy, and the next minute they're just absolutely full of anger, right? That is one sign that you guys need to look for, and don't just assume that people are okay. Like, take the time to really talk to people, because you don't know what you could say that could make a difference in that person prospectively looking at life, that yes, life is worth living. Yes, it's going to get better. Yes, let's put some faith. The best thing you could do in helping people in depression, anxiety, worry, is to give them the good news. You can look in the Word through Proverbs. There are tons of passages that you can give someone. Damein was talking about listening to motivational things that are going to motivate you to say, yes, you can press on.
And you know what? That's an everyday thing for me. So
yeah. But and maybe there are some things that are different for everybody. Like for me, I like praise and worship. So when I'm feeling down, or I'm like, man, I don't know. So what do? I usually get on my praise and worship. You need to fill your mind with things that are positive, so that you can release those things that are negative. It's never a good thing. You weren't created to hold weight of depression, anxiety, and all the things that we go through. You weren't created to carry that weight. And so you need to be able to get to a place where you have an outlet, maybe diary, maybe writing, you know what I mean? Damein, I think it's good to write our feelings down, you know, and having a place where you can let it out on a piece of paper or just talk to someone. And so I tell, you know, my wife's a great listener. So I tell everybody, you know what? Sometimes people just need to listen. So learn to listen to people, you know, because a lot of times we want to talk.
Right, and people just want somebody to listen to them while they talk. Just
Yeah.
somebody to hear what they have to say, because you know a lot of times a lot of people don't want to have to listen to what they have to say. So it's good to be a good listener.
So the next one is withdrawing from others, right? So you may be at a place where you see somebody and they're in isolation. Now, isolation is a very powerful thing because when you are in isolation, it causes you to look at things in the aspect that there's no hope. I have no hope in the situation, and the enemy wants to put you into isolation. The Bible says that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. So what the enemy wants to do for a lot of people is he wants to come and steal the positive things in your life and your self-belief and how you perceive yourself as a person. If he can steal your identity and who you are, then he has stolen the way that you perceive yourself as a person.
Right, and it's great that you brought that up, because like with this particular my friend's particular lady friend, I truly believe, and like I said, me personally, I'm not trying to turn y'all into angels and saints or anything like that, but I truly believe that girl had a spirit, a bad spirit over her that kept messing with her mind, I mean, telling her, oh, you know, you got to, I mean, it was just, it was something, a bad spirit that just kept messing with her. Yeah. I truly believe that. I said, because for a person to go that far and to use a gun, right, and shoot themselves in the head,
right.
That's a bad spirit coming at you.
Yeah.
And something like that, I personally, I don't know how you would get over that. I don't know. To me, I think that was something that you would have to catch early on as you become depressed or whatever the case may be. But I truly believe that people get these bad spirits in them that just keep pounding them until they finally decide to end their lives.
Yeah, and that's a good point, David. You know, I want you guys to remember that the word says that we do not fight against flesh and blood. We fight against the principalities of high places in wickedness. So there are literally people, and this is why gateways are dangerous. Listen, the enemy can never come in by itself. It has to have a legal invitation to come into that person's life. So when we are using heroin, meth, whatever it may be, substance, it is the legal door to allow that entity to come and penetrate into that person's mind.
Right, and that's one of the leading causes of suicide: narcotics and alcohol.
Yes, and I'm a big believer that a suicide, this is just my perspective, I believe that suicide is a demonic spirit that takes out a lot of people. So we want to continue to pray and cancel that spirit of death over people. When you know that someone is going through a tragic event in their life, you need to know that, listen, you need to use the word. The Bible says that the word is what? The Lord is consuming fire. The only thing that is ever going to stop and break that mind is the consuming word over that person's life. I truly believe that there are people that have absolutely set in their ways that this is what I'm going to do, regardless of what people say. This is what I've done. So, and then the other thing is that I'm sure that we are talking to some people that maybe have a relative, brother, sister, aunt, uncle that has committed that act. And what one of the things that the enemy wants to do is lie and turn things again. Then what happens? Suicide doesn't just affect the individual, it affects everybody around the individual. Because if you listen to people, most of them would say, oh, I should have done this. Oh, if I would have just said that. Oh, I blame myself. So see, the enemy wasn't just done with that person that did the act. He's moving on to the next thing, which is what? Shame, guilt about the act of it being done. And so as a father or mother, you need to be able to know that never blame yourself for the act that somebody else did. Because at the end of the day, it's still free will. It's still free choice. And I know it's easy for somebody to look at it and say, man, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have said that. I wish I could have done that. I didn't know. And so, what's the comments on there, Damein?
Go ahead.
So, now the other sign is showing dangerous and self-harmful behavior. So, what do I mean by self-harm? So sometimes you will see people who are cutters, right? And they're using self-infliction, right? When you see that, that is a sign of pain in a person's life. And you'll see people cut themselves. And then the other side of that too is you need, now this may sound crazy to some of you, but it is a real thing of people tormenting themselves to what? Release the pain. So when you see that into people's lives, you see this a lot with people who are drug addicts, such as heroin addicts, meth addicts. They will actually go to a place where they will start picking at themselves. They'll pick their skin, right? You'll see sores all over their face, right? That is a sign of self-torment. And so that demon, that tormenting demon, is coming and wanting to what? Inflict. And they're trying to what? Release pain. Right? So that's a sign that if you see someone who's a drug addict that is in that condition, you need to be able to step up and say, listen, and seek some help for them. Now, what frustrates me more than anything, Damein, is that we live in a system that when someone needs help as a drug addict, if you really need professional help,
yeah, it's gonna cost. You better have the money for it.
You better have the money for it.
You have the money for it,
right?
Get it.
And this is the thing that frustrates me more than anything. The best treatment centers out there are not available for those that are really needing it. Now, if you are in Beverly Hills and you have a son or a daughter that needs help, now you can go pay the $10,000 and $20,000 for treatment. But this is part of the problem that we have in society, is that we have set the bar so high for people to get real help that when they need the help, it's financially impossible. So I think that's something that needs to be really looked at, Damein, when it comes to getting a real parent help, financially affordable for those that are in that situation.
Right.
Now, the next one is recent trauma in life. So we have a lot of times now, this is such as example of a breakup, right? There are people that will threaten you and say, if you break up with me, I'm going to kill myself. Now, that's a real deal. In fact, that happens a lot.
Right, and that's with the attachment. And there comes the love with that. And this is what I tell people that have no idea what I'm talking about with that. I said, listen, if you've never been with someone and you're committed to them and something happens to where, you know, shit hits the fan, and maybe one day you don't think that you think there's a possibility that you might end up on the first 48.
Right.
You ain't never been in love.
Right.
So
right,
when
right,
you come
right.
when it comes to you playing with somebody's emotions and all that other, you know, my thing is this, because I'm a big believer in an eye for an eye and karma. If you do something to someone and they just been a good person towards you, and all of a sudden, I mean, and that's the love aspect of it. But like I said, there's always going to be one person that loves the other person more. But that can, if that person, because I've been in situations to where I really loved, you know, I really loved someone, and they didn't love me as much as I loved them.
Yes.
And
Yep.
I think all of us guys have been through that, and I was heartbroken by it. But you know, now that I'm older, I don't play with people's emotions like that.
Right.
You know, so it's better for me to just go ahead and say, hey, you know, I'm sorry. You know, I don't think this is gonna work out. I'm not just gonna dip out on them. I'm gonna tell them, you know, and hopefully they haven't really built an attachment with me. But when it comes to playing with people's emotions and love is involved, you never know what that next person might do after you guys break up or the relationship's over. You never know.
No. And that's and it was a good point that Damein pointed out. Don't assume that they're going to take it easy or accept your breakup. Just because you break things off doesn't mean that they don't feel like there's an attachment. And this is where we have to be careful, because this is where the stalkers come in. Because it ain't over for them, right? They're saying, hey, and remember, you have to be aware of that, because it's a real life scenario. Look, if you watch 48 Hours, like Damein was saying.
First 48.
Yeah, first 48, right? Look how many of those relationships had to deal with that person saying, if you're not with me, then you ain't going to be with nobody.
Yeah.
Right? There are real life scenarios of people. That's why it's so dangerous just to jump in, jump out of relationships. Because sooner or later, you're going to get into a place that you don't even know that you have a stalker on your tail. And that's a real deal. So the next one is experience a recent trauma. We were talking about relationship diagnosis. Now, here's the other. Here's the other big one that a lot of people don't talk about. We've been diagnosed with a real illness, cancer, right? Heart transplant, right? Kidney, right? Might be something major illness that a person says, man, I just got the news I got cancer, right? And they don't know, right, if this is something that is going to be savable for them, or they feel like, I don't want to put my family through it. So these are real life scenarios that people think of considering and live into their life, because they feel like there's no way out. I don't want to go through the chemo. So they just say, I'd rather be out than deal with it. So let me take the easy way out. So these are some of the things, again, that are life-threatening scenarios of major things that cause people to say, hey. Now, the other one that a lot of people don't talk about is financial crisis. So if you think about financial crisis, a lot of people don't stop to realize. If you'll be amazed at how many people on Wall Street, investors, take their life. Right?
Especially for those that are accustomed to living a certain lifestyle.
Right?
And then all of a sudden they just come in financial ruin.
Yes. And that's a real deal. You look at how many people who try to live a certain status, right? And all of a sudden they lose, right? They got a family of 3 and they've just lost almost all of their stock value. And they've got to go home and tell the wife, hey, babe, I got some bad news. That stock, we don't have it anymore. It's like we're broke. Right? So financial crisis is something that you guys need to remember. Listen, and I'm saying this to people because there is nothing in this life worth taking your life, even in the moment of financial crisis. Even in the moment. And the other one that a lot of people don't talk about is gambling.
That's a vice. It's
right?
a major vice.
A major vice that causes what? A lot of turmoil, right? And it ruins marriages. It loses. There are literally people that burn up their kids' college education fund down to zero. Gambling. And there are people that say, "Man, I just lost it. I'm done. I can't go home. I can't. My wife,
she gonna leave.
Yeah,
She's gone.
They're gone.
He knows she's gone.
They're gone. My marriage is over." So, what I'm saying is that if you're a person in that predicament where you have a gambling problem, and you feel like, man, this is unforgivable, there is nothing in this world that's not forgivable. And it may seem like you're going to have turmoil like no tomorrow. But I think that your significant other or your wife would rather you be at a place and say, man, I screwed up, than for you to take your life.
Right. But she might leave. But
now, yeah. Now, if she leaves, you have to know that's still better than taking your life.
It'll be hard.
Yeah. So know that these. So we're talking about these things because, guys, it's a real deal. All the things that we have talked about, these are things that are real scenarios in our everyday life when we meet people. You're going to meet people that have gambling problems, devices, like Damein was saying. Guys, I know people that were grocery store managers making $375,000 a year and doing coke lines and meth lines out on their vacation. And their wife works for the DEA. And they don't even know it. Right? These are real life scenarios. What's the comment saying?
Yep, Stephanie, we sure do. We reap what we sow.
Yeah.
And you know, I tell, if I, you know, I'm straight up with a woman. I'm straight up with it. I'm not trying to hold anything back because I don't want any kind of misconceptions. So, you know, I don't play games like that with people's emotions. I don't do that because I know that it's going to come back on me when I do that. And you know, and a person's feelings are involved and they're depressed. And you don't want to put nobody through that. I mean, you just don't, because karma, it's going to come back on you. I guarantee you.
Yeah. And yes, I agree with Steph there, is that, you know, whatever we put out is what we get in return. And so you need to know that when you're going into a relationship, you need to think of all these factors. That person has a baby. It's not just that person has a baby, right? That guy has one of these 20%, 30%, 40% that you need to consider when you jump into that relationship.
And guys, I keep preaching. I keep telling you, be careful with the women that you sleep with. Be careful, because all of that, hey man, it's almost a done deal. I mean, once they start garnishing your check, and and you can't even live to pay your rent or to buy food for yourself, can't take care of yourself, it's over.
And,
it's over.
And so what Damein is saying is exactly was my scenario. It was done. I said, man, the best thing I had is ramen noodles, right? And trying to survive. It was only because of the grace of the Lord that I was able to get and be healed and be able to be brought out of that. But that's a real scenario for a lot of men, that they're in that and they're stuck in a situation.
And it becomes suicidal.
So I'll share this quick story. So I just read this article of this individual, right? Gets the girl pregnant, right? He moves to Germany. His dad gets sick. He comes back, and the mom says, "Don't worry, I'm not going to go after you for child support," right? So he comes back because his dad is getting ill, and he's like, okay. Comes back, sleeps with her again, right? The relationship was over. He comes back, he sleeps with the girl again, right? Picks up, goes to Germany. His dad finally is ill enough. He comes back, and he has an inheritance from his dad, who left him a house, right? So he's excited, like, man, I finally got a break. I'm going to have a house. And he gets a phone call, and they said, whatever his name, Mr. Sam, listen, you know that you owe over $100,000 in back child support.
That's not funny, but I'm just...
Right? And I mean, and he was like, what are you talking about? Right? And meanwhile, his mom, the woman he had slept with, had 2 other kids from 2 other guys, right?
And she's milking them, huh?
And they're milking her, yeah, and she's milking them, right? And this guy's like, man, $100,000 in child support. Listen, let me tell you what. I don't know if you guys know this, but let me help you with something. If you get a girl pregnant in almost every state, and you ask for some type of assistance, or that woman's asked for some type of assistance, food, medical, whatever it is, it's not that listen, she has no choice. The state is going to make her go after the dad. The state is going to come after you. So, this is why, again, you need to understand, this isn't you just, I ended up, I'm going to have a little one. This is something you need to understand, is that you need to wait until you're committed and you're married to have that child. Because as a single man or a single woman, any type of assistance, they're coming after you. And it's just not for 1 year, like Damein said. This is 18 years that they're going to come after you.
And what that does, here comes the domino effect. Comes the domino effect, comes depression.
Yes.
Comes depression, comes the suicidal thoughts.
Yes. So it's like Damein was saying, it's a compound thing that's going to be compounded. Not including anybody else in the picture. The ones that got 2 or 3 daddies and 2 or 3 mommies, and in that scenario, you need to understand, listen, you need to take a break.
Yeah, because it's going to be over.
Don't make a situation worse by thinking that you need someone in your life so that you can be a person coming into your life doesn't make you whole. You have to find within yourself what makes you whole as a person.
Nope, that's why I said last week, you got to learn how to live alone.
Yes.
You got to learn how to be alone first.
And that and some of you have never been alone. See, this is where fear plays as an instrument into people's lives. Because if you don't know how to overcome fear, fear will wrap itself around your mind and it will control the next move that you make. You have to get to a place to understand that you can't bring anything to the table in anybody else's life until you first find yourself to be a whole person. And why do I say that? Because we end up being with people who are imperfect people. It doesn't matter if you think, oh man, I've met that perfect man, that perfect woman. As soon as you move in, you're going to find out they're not so perfect, right? So it's about understanding that then if you guys move in, it could be as simple as they don't even clean up after themselves, right?
And it's funny you brought that up. Some guys ask me if it's okay. And this is a total different topic. We'll talk about it some other time. But some guys ask me, is it okay to move in with a woman?
Oh Lord.
Yeah, and you know, we'll get to that, but yeah, you don't know. You'll find out that person isn't perfect.
No, and so we actually listen. This is why you have to be whole, because there are going to be life situations of the other person that you're going to have to have patience, control, and how to deal with that person's situation. In the aspect of outside family, right? Because a lot of times you may end up with somebody that they had a great family upbringing. And the person that you end up moving in with has a horrible family upbringing. So there's going to be challenges that come along in that relationship. And if you're not a whole person, that relationship will fall apart in pieces fast. Because all relationships have to have one thing in common: forgiveness, grace, patience, right?
Well, I'll say this: those are certain things I can forgive you for. I can't forgive you for everything. I can't.
Well, yeah, I mean, depending on what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, so, you know, but the major thing that we, you know, again, we wanted to really talk about was, listen, relationship suicide is a real deal. I had a good friend that I grew up with a year and a half ago. Right? Had 5 kids. 5 shot himself. So guys, this is the turmoil. Those kids have to grow up for the rest of their lives without their father. So this is a real deal that occurs. And I think most of you guys, most people have probably heard of everybody having a relationship that did not make it, and it turned sour and turned ugly, and it took that person's life. This is why this is not something to just play around with when you are dealing with people and you think it's an okay thing. So what I was saying was about, the enemy comes to steal, right? He didn't just come to steal. The Bible didn't just say he comes to steal. He said that he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So the main thing you want to understand is that the enemy's main objective is to what? Steal your identity and who you are as a person. The only reason why I ever made it, I tell everybody, listen, if it hadn't been for me finding the Lord in my life, I would never have made it. I would never have been able to forgive myself. I would never been able to forgive my kids' mothers. I would never been able to forgive, because you have to forgive to let go of that pain, of that disappointment. It's a choice that you make to forgive people. And you have to make that decision so that you can move on and be free. And the Lord will restore someone in your life. I promise you, no matter how bad it looks. That person isn't the only person that you are going to find to have a connection with, or you think is beautiful. The Lord will bring you someone, but you have to make sure that you are whole, so that when he brings you that next relationship, that you are able to be whole as a person into that next relationship. Because if you don't, the cycle starts all over again.
Right. And I was going to say, I understand, heartbreaks. I get it. I understand. And, it happens to the best of us. But I think the most important thing that we can get out of a heartbreak, instead of, going through the depression stages and things like that, is to learn from that past relationship. You just learn from it, make the necessary adjustments to it. But the last thing that should be in your mind is to want to take your life, because I'll tell you this right now, ain't nobody worth that.
No.
Nobody. And if you think that they are, you got something else going on. But I can tell you this: when it comes to relationships, ain't nobody worth me taking my life.
No.
I don't care how beautiful she is. I don't care. I am not gonna take my life because this person broke my heart.
Yep.
And this is why I said last week. That's why I personally will never get attached to somebody, because I know how crucial. I know what that can lead to. And a lot of people, when they get attached, they fall in love, and it doesn't work out, and their heart is broken, and they've been in love with that person 2 or 3 years or however long. You never know what goes through that person's mind. They could want to end it. And so, and I tell people, it's not worth it. Learn from that past relationship and move on. Nothing is worth you taking your life, especially not a person. It's not worth it.
No. So, hopefully you guys, if you got something out of it on the aspect that, listen, suicide relationships that decide to take their lives is a real deal. And there are many scenarios that we actually were able to share with you guys of life scenarios that causes a person to think this is the end. Listen, you can make a difference in a person's life by giving them words of encouragement. Don't assume that everybody's got somebody. There are people that have no family. There are people that get to a place where they feel they have nobody to talk to. So maybe the Lord will use you as an instrument into that person's life to be able to bring them hope. And you don't have to pound. Sometimes people just, like Damein was saying, just want an ear to listen, right? And you'd be amazed at how much if you would just listen to people.
Right, and the thing is, man, a lot of guys, you know, we don't really have anybody to talk to, and we keep it built up. We keep it inside. We don't have anybody to talk to. We do that.
Yep.
Because it's looked at as a sign of weakness.
Yep.
So, you know, man.
No. So anyway, guys, listen. We'll probably see you guys. Well, actually, we'll be back on Tuesday, right?
Tomorrow's Tuesday.
Or wait a minute, Wednesday. We'll be back on Wednesday, guys. So before I forget, let me throw this link up here on. Let's see where we at. So you guys can get Damien's book here, The Game Advice, and at your Amazon, if you guys can go there and purchase this book. It's a great read. I suggest to everybody, this is, in my opinion, one big solution in helping people even going down that road of even getting to the point in their life where they have no hope. We have to instill the things of self-improvement. And if we get to a place of self-improvement, you have to do the work. And then, so if you guys get a chance, you can go and purchase this book. I read the book personally. I just telling Damein the other day, I was looking through his book, and there's so much in that book that can help you when it comes to self-improvement. Because it's sometimes that's all you have is a book, Damein.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you don't have somebody to talk to, listen, pick up a self-improvement book about positive things that can take place in your life.
Right. And that's why I said earlier, what keeps me going is I do a lot of reading and I listen to a lot of motivational speakers. So, without that, I'd probably go insane. I'd probably go mad. My spirits would be crushed if I focus on the struggles of everyday life. But I do a lot of reading to help, self-improve myself. So it kind of keeps the depression away from me a lot. So
yes, and so I get into a place of reading books that are self-help books. How to overcome depression, anxiety, and I tell everybody the best book is the Word. You need to open that Word and feed that to your soul. You need to look at things that are going to be uplifting in your life, and so don't get to a place where you think you can do it by yourself. If you're in the place where you feel like there's no way out, take the time to talk to someone and take the time to know that, listen, there is somebody that wants to help you to overcome whatever it is that you're facing. So, and then our last, I'll make sure that we do our, so if you guys, I don't know if you can see it or not. Anyways, the social butterfly, guys. Stephanie Duncan, you can actually go onto her Facebook page. If you are looking for a brand to help your business and you don't know where to start, you don't know where to begin, maybe you're bad with keywords, or maybe you're bad with hashtags, or maybe you're bad with how do I even get started, go over to the Social Butterfly. And guys, listen, don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. Spread your wings, get started. Listen, technology is a lot different than it was 20 years ago. Everything is on media. Everything is on social media and digital. And so you need to transfer. We're not in flyers where we put flyers on the door, right? Right? Some of you guys think you can run a business and still put flyers out on the door, right? Call me, right? I mean, we still get flyers at our house, David, right?
Yeah, that's the old way of doing things.
And you got flyers that are all down the staircase and being trampled on. Listen, stop doing that. Get yourself someone that can help you to get a new start, a new plan. Get your wings out there and start getting your brand out there so that people can recognize who you are, and you can actually get something off the ground this year, not next year. So anyway, thanks again, guys. I hope this at least was some information for you to really consider and stop to realize that, listen, it's a real deal. And before I leave, listen, if you guys are having a hard time, I deal with people with soul ties. If you are stuck in a relationship, past relationship, and for whatever reason you cannot get over this person, the chances are is that you have a soul tie that you need to have that spirit broke off of your life. And if you are interested in having a session, you can reach out to me, either inbox me or reach out to datingwithabear and at gmail.com, and you can write me and we can take it from there. But listen, make sure that you get healed before moving into the next relationship. And today could be a new day. Take a break. Take some time and say, man, I'm going to stop dating for a while until I can get myself together. Because we have to get to a place where we can be whole as a person before trying to bring something to the table that's just going to be messy for that next person. And it's not fair for that next person to take on your baggage because you don't want to deal with it. So get to a place where you can get some help. And then if you guys, we're doing more. We don't have a what do you call that, IT guy or?
No, we don't have that guy.
Yeah, we don't have the IT department, so we are it, or the media. Okay, so if you guys would like to donate, listen, I would greatly appreciate it. I tell everybody, if you want to donate because you're led to give. Not because you're pressured into giving, but because you're led into giving. And we want to continue to grow this channel. And, you know, my big plan is that one day we'll be in a studio. And I told Damein, I said, all we'll have to do is turn on the lights and then hit go, right? So, but listen, it's better to start something than not start at all. A lot of times, a lot of people's problems is that they talk about getting started and then they're at the same place next year. That's real, Damein. People procrastinate on the idea, and this is why you need to have people help you with that brand to get it off the ground. Talk to people. If you don't know, if you don't have to know everything about a subject to get started. So if it's something that you want to pursue, if you want to be a book writer, or talk to people who are book writers, talk to people, say, what does it take for me to pursue writing a book? Not and don't go onto YouTube and just pick anybody. You need to talk to people that actually have gone through in what that really looks like, or what it looks like to brand something, or what it really takes to get something off the ground. But guys, I appreciate it. I want to thank all you guys for joining. Please share this. And again, we look forward to seeing you guys on Wednesday. So Mondays and Wednesdays, we're again. So let me again, before I get off, let me pray for you guys out there. Lord, we just thank you for who you have allowed us to wake up this morning and to be a blessing, and that, Lord, that our true help comes from you, and that no matter how bad life looks, Lord, give us faith and hope to be able to move on and past what we know that our challenges may be. And we just thank you, Lord, for someone on this broadcast who may have woke up this morning and said, I don't see any way out. And I ask, Lord, that you would just allow them to get into the word. And that, Lord, you would put someone in their path, and that you would cause them to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that it's not always going to be that way. And so, guys, listen, I thank you guys for joining. We'll see you guys next week. And same time, same place. And we'll talk to you then.